I got fired. My husband slumps, disheartened. Yes. Isn't this the best scenario? This battle still has hope. Watch out, you pathetic bald corrupt CEO. We'll win this. My name is Kate. I'm 40 years old. I was embarrassed when my microwave went ding, and I instinctively answered yes. It left my daughter horrified, thinking Mom's talking to the microwave. It's the era where talking to machines like Alexa or Siri isn't weird, right? I was extremely embarrassed because I was unconscious, though. Well, compared to the super embarrassing person I've met in the past, it's not as big of a deal as having a conversation with microwave. It was about 15 years ago. I was working at a company. It was small, yet elite, specializing in things like creating programs to protect computer security. We earned trust from big companies, and our performance was decent. Back then, the internet wasn't as widespread as it is now, and it was still the dawn of development in security and such. That's why the company was somewhat expected to grow more by the industry. That's where I met my current husband, Dave, a colleague, and we got married. But even before marrying Dave, I had been bothered by the CEO. It might sound conceited, but I was known as the pretty kid in the neighborhood since I was little. I was often asked by magazine photographers in town to take snapshot photos. I was envied by everyone for my looks, but I had a side that made it easy for annoying men to like me. The CEO was one of them. I don't even like my own face because of him. The CEO, even if I just said good morning, would evaluate me as a good girl who smiles and talks to me every day, and proudly talk about it to other employees. At that time, the CEO was 48 years old. He was already bald, but he seemed to be fine with it, and there was no sign of him trying to do something about it. He wasn't particularly good-natured, and he was arrogant to employees he didn't like, and kind to people who brought benefits to the company or pretty girls. He's somewhat of a control freak, and he's the type of person who tends to show favoritism towards employees, for better or worse. I couldn't help but feel physically uncomfortable with the favor from such a CEO. But he's my boss. I had to navigate the relationship carefully. Yet, I couldn't figure out how to deal with a guy who misunderstands a simple work report as relying on him. So, I had been skillfully dodging the CEO's advances. But when I announced my marriage to Dave at work, the CEO started persistently inviting me out for meals. Even though we had hidden our office romance, some people knew about my relationship with Dave. Yet, it seemed the CEO had been completely unaware of my relationship with Dave. Until then, it was just stuff like feeling his gaze or hearing from other employees that he liked me. So I thought, let's just smoothly navigate through this, but it became troublesome. Want to go to a private Italian place? We can hang out without any worries, just the two of us, he said. Last time I asked to go for dinner, you declined, saying you didn't have any cash on you, and felt bad about being treated. This time, I bought a wine from your birth year. Let's drink it at my place. It won't cost you a dime. You said you're not into alcohol, right? I found a bar that specializes in sweet cocktails. Let's go together. They even have private rooms where we can chill out comfortably. Hey, when are we gonna go out, just the two of us? No matter how many times I turned him down, the CEO kept inviting me out. Even though I never made any promises, he seems to believe we'll eventually go out together. My words just don't seem to get through to him. Even after I specifically told him I'm married and won't go out alone with a man, he wouldn't give up, saying, "What are you so cautious about? It's just part of the job." Each invitation felt like he's trying to get me drunk and take me to a private room. It was too obvious and impossible to pass off as part of the job. He was so persistent one day, I blurted out, "Please give up on me. You're bothering me." Until then, I avoided speaking out like that because I was afraid it would make him think I'm aware of his affection, making things even more difficult. But on that day, I was just too stressed and couldn't help but let out my true feelings. As expected, the president happily smiled and said, "So you did notice my feelings all along, right?" And then he put his arm around me. His clingy touch gave me goosebumps, and I instinctively pushed him away, shouting, "Absolutely not. This is wrong," and ran away. Originally, Dave had been telling me to quit my job because he was worried about the CEO's behavior. But despite that, I stubbornly stayed at this company because I wanted to see Dave working up close. Dave is the top engineer in the company, developing a new system that is expected to double our performance once completed. This company is the only place where I can watch my hard-working husband as a colleague. If I quit my job, it's impossible for us to both find new jobs at the same company. So, despite the creepy CEO, I wanted to stay together, but it looked like this was the breaking point. The next day, I submitted my resignation to the company. I told Dave what happened. He told me, "You absolutely need to quit." Armed with his strong words, I confronted the CEO. However, the CEO didn't accept this. Instead, he tried to persuade me to stay by offering all sorts of enticing benefits like a raise or a higher position. I would gladly stay at this company if he said, "If I resign and leave, would you stay? What's bothering you so much? If you want, I can even promote you to be my wife," he said with a smirk. Why can't he understand that I don't want that? I've told you multiple times, I'm married. I'm sick of being invited out to meals by you, or you putting your arm around my waist. I couldn't help but let out my true feelings to the CEO. So that's it. He's the one at fault. Huh. Your true love is me, right? I understand. You never expressed your feelings before, and you felt inferior to my position as the CEO, so you settled for marriage. What? That's not true. No need to be shy. I get it all. I thought he was just a pitiful pawn for your affection. I've been kind to him out of jealousy, unable to bear the thought of you being with your husband just because he's your husband. But if that's how it is, he's unnecessary. Why did it turn into that kind of conversation? I never had any interest in you from the start. All right, I completely understand your feelings. Well then, if that's the case, I'll accept your resignation. No need for the future CEO's wife to do the work of a regular employee. Let's make life easier for you. Saying so, he tucked my resignation letter into his pocket and disappeared from his office. It's hopeless. The conversation just doesn't get through at all. Why did the CEO say it's Dave's fault? What interpretation did that bald guy make? It's so frustrating dealing with someone I can't communicate with. Since there are people around in the office, I thought I'd tell Dave about it after we got home. But that night, Dave came home looking disappointed. What's wrong? I asked. Today, the system we were developing was completed, but when I reported it to my boss, I was suddenly fired by the CEO. He said to take 30 days of paid leave and not to come back. The CEO said I was no longer needed. I thought it was my fault. The system was completed, and somehow the CEO thinks my husband is unnecessary because of our conversation. Being no longer needed must mean that, wait a minute. Isn't that pretty lucky for both me and my husband? It's a pain to become unemployed just after getting married, Dave said with a troubled smile, and I smiled back. Well then, congratulations. That system, it was meant to extract suitable customers as the company's clients, right? Yeah, but without you, the data wouldn't be updated. It's meaningless to look at old customers who haven't been updated for so long. But since the basics are already in place, couldn't someone else understand and execute the updates without you? Even if they don't have to start from scratch like you did for nearly 6 months, do you think anyone else in the company could understand it in less than 6 months? It could be done if not constrained to 6 months. No, not like that. Hey, why don't you use that 6 months effectively and start your own business? Dave looked surprised at my suggestion. Now that both Dave and I are unemployed, we could start our own company similar to the one we worked for, introducing a slightly upgraded version of the same system. Since the system wasn't developed within the company, there were no provisions in the company regulations regarding patents, and as long as it wasn't exactly the same, there wouldn't be any legal issues. Only the original creator, Dave, could create the upgraded version. And if I helped Dave with his work, I could watch him work up close. Isn't that killing 2 birds with 1 stone? So, after giving a speech in front of my husband, he said, "You're quite cunning, aren't you?" Somewhat rudely, but he laughed and agreed to my proposal. Great, I can work with Dave again. After that, Dave wasted no time. 30 days later, just as the CEO had declared, we were fired. But we used our savings to start our own business. During that time, Dave had been reaching out to the top-notch employees from our previous company. If you're interested, why not join our company? It was basically headhunting. The CEO, who couldn't even use a computer, often didn't understand the struggles at the ground level and would often impose unreasonable demands. So, most of the employees decided to switch to Dave's company, thinking, if it's your company, which is better than anyone else's, you'll understand the perspective of the workers. Only the upper management, you the CEO favored, remained. If I had stayed at that company, I might have been included among them. Furthermore, Dave, following my suggestion, developed a new system, an improvement over the system he had built at his previous company. He not only continued to receive work through connections from his previous job, but also developed 2 new security systems and sold them to other companies. Since it was a profession with few competitors, people naturally gravitated toward companies that produced better products. The number of companies requesting work increased rapidly, and within 4 years of starting the business, Dave's company became the industry leader. The company was doing well, and the employees were feeling good about it, until one day. The CEO suddenly visited our company. We couldn't ignore him, so Dave reluctantly escorted the president to his own room. Worried, I accompanied them. "What brings you here?" Dave asked, and the CEO, with tears in his eyes, immediately apologized. Apparently, his company was suffering from poor business performance, was understaffed, was forcing its employees to work excessive overtime, and was unable to pay overtime wages. "I'm sorry. I've realized the error of my ways. I finally understand that Kate truly hated me. I'm truly sorry." Honestly, I couldn't care less about receiving an apology at this point. After all, Dave was earning more than when he was at the previous company, and the employees were getting paid well. No matter what the CEO said, I responded with something like, "We're happy now, so it's fine," and I had no interest in the CEO's apology and saw it as a waste of time. "If that's all, could you leave? We're busy too," Dave said, and the SEP, getting up from the sofa, started begging him. "I'm begging you. Please come back to my company. With you there, our performance should recover. Please, I'm counting on you." However, Dave quietly shook his head. "Since the day I was fired, I haven't been an employee of your company. I have a responsibility to protect the employees of my own company. So, I can't go back to your company. Can't you reconsider? Please. It's fine if you resign, and the entire company becomes part of ours." Affiliate, merger. What's the best thing to do in this situation? I'm not sure because it's my first time. Wait, are you asking me to resign as CEO? Of course. Even back then, what you did to Kate was wrong, trampling on the morale of female employees. Now, excessive overtime is being criticized by society. Sure, society now recognizes that what I experienced was wrong, but back then, it was quite gray. It was an era where it depended on the individual's perception. If you said, "He touched my waist," you'd either get excuses like there was no ulterior motive, "I just stumbled," or you'd be fired for being paranoid or overreacting. But overtime was a different story. Until then, ignoring the Fair Labor Standards Act and working overtime had been common, but with revisions to the law and such, society gradually started to view long hours of work as bad. The CEO's actions would be strictly regulated if reported to the appropriate authorities. Initially, the CEO kept repeating, "Isn't there any other option? Please, spare me from resigning." But it seems he realized the gravity of his actions and understood that staying at the top of the company was impossible anyway. The CEO stepped down from his position and left the company, while Dave merged the CEO's company. All the employees were taken in, and although we had to pay the overtime that couldn't be paid before, it turned out to be a relief since our performance was skyrocketing and we were short of staff ourselves. Since the CEO's company paid low wages, the overtime pay wasn't much of an issue. Looks like we're the winners here. When you suggested, "Why not start your own business?" when I was